All right, folks, we have some stunning breaking news. According to Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, Donald Trump and Republican congressional leaders are so terrified about Massie's bipartisan efforts to force the release of the Epstein Files, which is becoming increasingly likely, I might add, that Trump and Republican leaders are actually threatening Republican supporters of that effort, which is a major escalation and reveals just how panicked they truly are. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, if I sound pretty bad, it's because I'm either struggling with a sinus infection or the flu. Just bear with me, okay? So this comes courtesy of Semaphore reporter Burgess Everett, who interviewed Republican Congressman Thomas Massie. Massie says Republican leaders threaten supporters of push to release Epstein files. Yikes. Thomas Massie is declaring victory on his move to force a vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files after the election to fill a vacant Arizona House seat. And he says House Speaker Mike Johnson and, quote, some of the powers that be in D.C. are in full panic right now about it. The Kentucky congressman has drawn the combined ire of Donald Trump and Republican leaders for opposing much of the president's agenda and leading the charge on the Epstein files. And he said his three GOP partners are coming under duress for signing on to his effort to force a vote on releasing them against the wishes of party leaders. Again, ultimately Trump himself. Quote, they came back and tried to get the four of us to take our names off the petition. Massie told Semaphore after an event in his northern Kentucky district. Quote, they asked some of my colleagues who were co-signers, and they actually threatened them politically, not physically. GOP Representatives Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, and Lauren Boebert of Colorado have also signed the petition along with every House Democrat. Democrat Adelita Grijalva, who won the Arizona special election on Tuesday to fill her late father's seat, is expected to put the discharge petition over the top when she is sworn in next week. Remember, you needed 218 signatures. And surprisingly, I think Massie was probably surprised that more Republicans didn't, at least a couple of them didn't come over. But that's how aggressively Donald Trump and Mike Johnson worked to try to suppress this from coming out. They worked overtimes publicly and privately, manning the phones, making calls, putting forth a pressure campaign, threatening potentially, primaries and primary challenges and things of that nature to stop this thing, to basically kill it in its crib. Massie said, if Johnson uses parliamentary tactics to evade a vote, that, quote, there's enough notoriety on this issue that people will know that he's sweeping this under the rug. He also said if there's language included in a bill to sideline the petition, those who vote for that bill, quote, are part of the cover-up. So again, alleging a cover-up and the fact that Trump and Republican leaders are actively threatening Republican members who support this initiative. Massie announced he will have 218 supporters at an event in his northern Kentucky district as he answered questions from constituents. He argued ads running on Kentucky media from opponents attempting to oust him are backfiring by increasing his name ID. Massie's fight for releasing the Epstein files has further isolated him in the GOP, but he had backup on Wednesday from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, a fellow libertarian like Massie, one of the two GOP senators who supported a similar vote earlier this month. Paul said any effort to avoid a vote could cause further disarray in the House Republican Conference due to angst over changing the House rules. And he predicted it might backfire, but you actually might get even more of a groundswell if he tries to turn off the discharge petition, Paul said. Massie said once Republican leaders come to grips with the math on the Epstein files, he'll end up with well more than 218 votes. Quote, they're going to have a vote. I think they're coming to terms with that, Massie said. Quote, I'm going to bet the speaker is probably going to hand out hall passes to some congressmen because this is an 80-20 issue. So folks, this is stunning. This is a stunning development. I mean, Massie has been a bit of a renegade. He's pissed off Donald Trump publicly and privately. Trump has ranted and raved about him on Truth Social, on camera. Trump has previously tried to primary Thomas Massie, I believe, in 2 previous congressional cycles, and he has failed both times. That's not to say that he won't fail in the future, right? But Massie has proven thus far to be uniquely resilient among Republican congresspeople, and that's why he feels so bold. And quite frankly, my read on Massie, which I don't believe this is off the mark, and I believe he's actually said, I think he has since said some things to indicate it. I think he's itching for a fight. I think this delights him. I think part of him enjoys putting a thumb in Trump's eye because my assumption is he doesn't particularly like Trump. He was slow to endorse Trump in the last election, but ultimately did because Trump was a Republican candidate. But I think Trump trying to bully him has triggered a troll element in Massie where he's like, you know what? Screw you. And I'm going to show you're the most powerful man in the world. Everyone's afraid of you. I'm going to stand up to you, and I'm actually going to delight in doing it. I'm going to troll and mock and make this as painful for you politically as I possibly can. Also because I think it's doing the right thing. Massey's wife died, I think, within the past year, and I think that's also had an impact on him as well because he's even bolder now than he ever has been, right? Like I saw on Twitter somebody say like Massey had few fucks to begin with, and now he's all out of them. And so he's partnered with Ro Khanna, a Democratic congressman out of California, to push this discharge petition that would effectively bypass Mike Johnson. Because in the House, like the Senate, the majority party controls what legislation gets through, right? Except you have a discharge petition. Basically, it's a sufficient number of signatures on a specific type of petition, and it allows the signatories to force a vote on that particular petition. Now, in theory, the majority could overcome it, but there would still have to be a vote on the issue, right? And Mike Johnson doesn't want to ever let it get to a vote because he knows it will look terrible for him and ultimately his boss, his master, Trump, because they're going to try to whip votes to stop the forcing of the release of the Epstein Files, which is something that most people want and that Trump campaigned on. So to have further confirmation that it's gotten to the point where Trump and Mike Johnson and their cat's paws are politically threatening, not just Massie, but from the sounds of it, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that they are standing fast in this, that says something. Marjorie Taylor Greene she attended the press conference that Massie and Khanna just a couple of weeks ago held with victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, in which some of those victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein called Donald Trump out by name for his lies and deceit and his stonewalling efforts. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has been a diehard Trump cultist, but she stood there. She didn't flinch. She didn't fire back. She didn't run away in the crowd. She stood there while those criticisms were levied against her cult leader, Donald Trump. So they seem fairly resolute. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it sounds like Massie has been banking on this Democratic candidate winning her race because he was expecting more from the Republicans and they didn't come over. And it may yet be that once Republicans who are on the fence realize oh shit, they have the sufficient numbers to get this through. Okay, now because they have the numbers to get this through, more people will come along. And that's what the hall pass that Mike Johnson was talking about. Like, shit, this is going to happen either which way. They have the 218 signatures they need. So screw it. If you guys feel like you need to vote for it, just go ahead and do it. That way you can get ahead of this issue and it can't be used against you as a political cudgel, which if Democrats were smart at all, they absolutely would use this as a political cudgel. Like, hey, they didn't vote for the petition to release the Epstein Files or to force the release of the Epstein Files, or they were slow to do it because they're so afraid of Trump. Thus, they can make the case to those people's constituents. They feared this candidate doesn't give a shit about you, doesn't give a shit about representing you because they're more afraid of Donald Trump than you. And they care more about pleasing Trump than pleasing you. That's why they drag their feet on this. So again, we will see what happens, but this was a stunning revelation by Thomas Massie, and I really appreciate the fact that he's increasingly public about the pressure that he and his Republican colleagues have been put under by Donald Trump and Mike Johnson as they desperately try to strangle this Epstein scandal, but it doesn't seem to be working. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.